I have to say this. You are one of the few people that I've met, you and Leon, some of the few people that I've met in real estate that still have like authentic straight swag about them. Some of these cats that I meet, I'm like, man, like you're trying so hard.
Yeah.
Which is cool. You know, that's fine. But
yeah,
organic, natural, like easy, the way it should be. Do you work with a stylist?
I don't.
Okay.
I've been doing this since I was like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah. Oh, he been putting that on.
Yeah,
okay.
He
said, I'm true to this. I am not new to this.
It's in me, not on me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so it's nothing is funnier to me than to watch these guys who like blow up on the internet.
Yeah.
And you like, why are you wearing that? Right. Like, I get that you spent $4,000 on the outfit, but it looks horrible on you. Because it's not you.
Right. You don't wear that.
You don't wear that. You put that on today, but you don't wear that.
Right.
You know.
That's so wild, man. I've been getting comfortable with like, you know, finding my style.
For sure.
Like people make fun of me. I'll be popping out in turtlenex, whatever. I'm like, man, goodbye.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm gonna do
all of it, bro.
Yeah.
Like if you look at my like I'm all over the map with it. You know
oh
what
man.
I mean? Like I wore this today just because I knew it's a younger audience.
Right.
You know,
you pop
I
out
wore this
bit.
at the DR in Punta Cana a week ago with my wife. We went to dinner.
Nice.
And normally I wouldn't wear something this flashy on the podcast.
Yeah.
But
just reading.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
reading.
I'm like, yeah, it felt right.
You and
But then when I go back to my 5-day challenge tonight, I have a suit on and a polo.
Man.
You know what I mean? So
I think we might circle up on that one the next time you come through.
Okay.
Just like fashion and presentation. Because I almost feel like you could speak in a similar vein. And like, I don't typically draw comparisons, but like the kind of guidance that like Kevin Samuels gave to young men.
Yeah.
I feel like you're well-versed and articulated in that in a way that our audience could like receive.
Yeah.
So
we have to realize we always on stage.
Yeah.
Like you're always on stage.
Yeah.
So the next time you think to wear slides and a hoodie and a do-rag to the airport and you call yourself a business person, just remember you always on stage.
Yeah. It's always an audition.
Yeah, I wear do-rags at night.
At home.
you know what I mean? Like I wear house shoes at the house, right? Like that's the goal. So when we start to get too comfortable, we just have to ask ourselves, while yes, I'm free and it's my truth, but are you putting yourself in the most advantageous spot to win?
Right. And what are you projecting out about yourself?
Yeah. Well, like what do you gain from that?
Yeah. Or what's the potential upside there?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking at that against what's the potential downside of that?
Yeah.
Right. What's your opportunity cost because you chose to wear slides, a hoodie, and a do-rag on the plane today?
Yeah.
Whereas for the women that they put on a bonnet and some tights and like while you are comfortable getting on that airplane, all the people you walk past in first class that you may have come in contact with at some other point, like what did you just communicate to them? Yeah. Nothing, because they didn't pay you any attention once you got on there.
Right. Because why would they?
You were immediate turn off.
Yeah. Man.
So we just got to, everybody to whom much is given, much is required. Like we depending on our lot in life, we held to a different standard.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
Man, so typically, right, I'll do like the fun intro. Okay. It's like, hey guys, like I'm Rav. I'm here with Brian.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to do that today.
Okay.
Just because I feel like we just flowing straight through it. So I will give some context, right? So you and I met through a good mutual friend of mine, Leon, or of ours.
For sure.
And you're both in kind of similar veins. I definitely want to dive deeper into kind of where your overlaps and some of the differences in what you do on a day-to-day kind of sit at. But you've been in the real estate game for quite some time. And it's interesting that that's been coming up so often in the people that I've been meeting lately, personally seeing that as a sign of elevation. Yes. Okay. But it's a game that I think for a lot of my audience is kind of grossly understood. I mentioned this when Leon and I sat down. A lot of people have this conception of real estate as a rich man's game or otherwise just being inaccessible to what you'd call like the average person. So I'd love to share a bit of the context that you shared with me around how you got into the game, just to kind of reinforce what opportunity there is there for someone that is starting from scratch and doesn't know what they're getting into. Yeah,
for sure. First of all, man, I'm just so happy to be here with you today. Like I had no idea it was going to be this good.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I appreciate the invite back and I look forward to coming back.
Yes, sir.
We could talk for days.
We
like
will.
Literally we could talk for days. But I think what we focus on expands.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get very clear about what our yes is, then we can start disciplining ourselves against the no's.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why people wander through life oftentimes is because they're not clear about what their target is.
Mm-hmm.
And scripture says that without vision, man will perish, right? Everything else around you dies when you don't have a vision. You default into a life as opposed to design one for yourself.
Mm.
And so my generation certainly has been plagued by that.
Mm.
I'm an 80s baby. I'm at the bottom end of millennial. And so we were raised by boomers and Gen X. So, you know, their whole lot in life was go to work, many of them blue collar. Mine were certainly, my dad was a firefighter for 30 years. My mom was a cashier at a grocery store for 25 years. So work ethic was instilled in me at a young age. And based on their own life experience and purview, then they assumed their children also will go to work for 30 years, hopefully have a pension someday, and all of this fictitious idea of a retirement.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God, early on at 12, like I just had this infatuation for my own money. Started out sweeping up here in the barbershop when I was 12 years old, making $25 a week, like crazy, right? But the social aspect and how much I learned in that environment is priceless. And it started to catapult me in ways that I just couldn't have imagined for myself. And so I always knew having a job would be a part of it, but I knew that having a job wouldn't be all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, with that in mind, the people around me in my environment that I saw to be aspirational, I didn't have, looking back on it, and I know this is going to sound crazy for the viewers, but I didn't know one entrepreneur, like other than like the stores I went to, right? But I'm talking about like in my circle
Mm-hmm.
or sphere of influence, I didn't know one entrepreneur coming up as a kid.
Yeah.
So the people that I saw that did not go to work, that had an aspirational lifestyle, were those in the streets hustling.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, what you tune into, you turn into. And I found myself getting into that lifestyle as a late teen. My senior year in high school, I was 17. I caught a case. I was looking at a 4 to 10 year felony.
Mm.
I had a full ride academic scholarship to college. Got up there, as one could imagine, distracted about my freedom, and flunked out, lost my scholarship, got my now wife, then girlfriend, pregnant at 18. So this transition from 17 to 18 years old was wild, to say the least. And a really dark time in my life, honestly. And by God's grace, I found my way back into the church, gave my life to Christ. And I can't fully articulate everything that happened, but things started changing drastically. Got on the other side of that case, never went to prison, fully expunged from my record, got rematriculated back into college where I graduated summa cum laude. Been with my wife in a couple months, 17 years, and we've been married we've been together for over 20. We got a daughter that's soon to be 22, getting married in February. So by God's grace, life turned out amazing, right? While the viewer who's listening to this maybe can identify with my background, the thing that I do want them to understand and take away from this is that God gives us a tremendous amount of grace. Problem is, we don't give ourselves a lot of grace.
Mm.
And Paul tells us that we need to forget those things that are behind us and press forward, right? And so my message to the viewer is just keep pressing forward. I don't care what trauma you've been through, you know, what's been done wrong to you, who you've done wrong to.
Mm-hmm.
All of that has been forgiven. Forgive yourself and keep moving forward, because there's so much more in store for you if you will continue to move forward and press forward.
Yeah.
And so pressing forward, while I was in college, a guy 20 years my senior was flipping houses. So now this is the first legitimate entrepreneur that I come in contact with.
Mm.
And so he was flipping houses to these people. I didn't know what that meant, but he was like, listen, my buyers for these houses don't have the money to get the loan. They don't have a down payment, but they qualify on paper, which later found out was called a stated income loan, which was part of the reason why the market contracted in 2008. And so I was like, well, cool. I got these refund checks I'm not doing nothing with. I'm going to start like leveraging these to gift them to cover their down payment. And then when he flipped them in the house, he gave me a return on my investment. So that's legitimately how I got started in the business as a de facto private lender.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in 2006. I was 22 years old. And then after doing several of those, my curiosity, I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. How they buying these houses with no job, no money? And so I started buying stated income loans while I was in college as well. So I bought 2 or 3 rental properties, and then we built a new construction home. So like we graduated May of 2007. We broke ground in March of 2007, built a $300,000 house, 2,500 square feet, 4 bed, 3 bath, like our dream home fresh out of college, right? while we were still in college. And but I was being opportunistic and not educated. Didn't understand what the top of the market meant. Didn't understand that there was no equity in these properties. Didn't understand that we were on the cusp of a market contraction, and 2008 happened. So everything that I had mortgages on, I was over leveraged, had to do deed in lieu of foreclosures, short sales, which weren't popular back then. And but I wasn't jaded yet because I just was so new. Yeah. Right. And I'm still a kid in the candy store. Yeah. I'm like, that candy was sweet at first and it got really sour. I don't want to eat that no more. Right. But it's this other candy over here though that's still all right. Valid. And right, it's kind of like penny candy because it's so cheap. Yeah. And that's what it was during the market contraction in my area. I mean, I was getting properties, bro. I bought one property as low as $2,500 cash. Could you imagine? That's right. So crazy. Put $4,000 or $5,000 into it and rent it out for $650, $700. You just can't miss. Yeah. So here I am, 24, 25. I done bought 20 of these things, right? Free and clear. And I look back at that time in my life, I really was free, but I kept myself in bondage because of the environment that I was still in. So although financially I could have been free, had I had the right people around me to show me what to do with that money as it was coming in, my mentality was still street. My friend group was still street. So my behavior was consistent with that. Yeah. And so I was spending it just as fast as it was coming. And, through not having education, a lot of stuff that I just didn't do properly on the front end. I was essentially putting lipsticks on pig, right? And we were making these things habitable for people, but I didn't understand roofing systems and foundations and HVAC and electrical systems, right? So we made sure things were functioning and were cosmetically pretty for people. But when these main arteries of these properties started having issues, then I was exposed. I didn't know what to do. And so because I had the inability of me being able to raise capital back then, create partnerships, I just didn't have enough skill to keep the portfolio. And rather than being a slumlord, I decided to sell it off, 90% of it in a down market. And that left me at a place for the first time ever where my job was no longer my business partner. It was the main thing, right? I always looked at my corporate job as being my first business partner, right? I leveraged the income from it to do the other things that I really wanted to do. And this is the first time where I'm sitting in corporate and I'm like, I don't have another move. This the thing that I was doing don't work no more. And Albert Einstein says that the same level of consciousness that created the problem won't be the same level of consciousness to fix it. Yeah. So I didn't have another level of consciousness to fix this problem that I created. And so that led me to mentorship. And one of those free infomercials found me at 2:00 in the morning, right? They got that to a science. They got him. They got him. They got me, man. But it was a beautiful thing because prior to that, everything synonymous with seminar was scam, right? From where I come from. Because ignorance is expensive. Yeah. The people that I was around was ignorant to what seminar really was. And so everybody started classifying things as a scam. And then we just started believing these truisms, although they're not true. Right. And when I finally went to this free event and I walked in this room and I'm like, these are the people I've been looking for. Mm-hmm. And when you come from an environment that does not have those people, you have to pay to get into the environments to be with those people. Yep. So I'm finally like, okay, I'm home. I don't know what the number is. We got to figure it out. And back then, this was 2015, mentorship was relatively expensive. Spent $40,000 initially, but I didn't know about upsells. Again, this is my first rodeo, right? I'm the perfect client. They're like, this guy desperate. He tired of doing it his way. Straight new. Like, what I mean? Like, so behind door number 2, we got this for you too. And I'm buying it all. I'm like, I need the accelerated program. I want all of that. And so I leveraged my credit, my wife's credit, and pushed all the cash to the center of the table and forever changed my life. Wow. Because when your skill set increase, your income will increase. And when you can pay for things according to your creativity instead of selling your time and depleting the money, then that's how you get wealthy. Yeah. Because time is a limited resource. Your money can be a limited resource, and your physical ability is definitely a limited resource. You can't work 24 hours a day. Yeah. So you have to get to some point where your creativity can create streams of income that allows you to not be there while they're being created. Right. Get you a higher leverage point on it. 100%. Yeah. Man, when you mentioned with the mentorship and how, this connotation of like a scam on there's so many people that, like you said, just buy into that truism because it's what they hear and what their parents say. And then there are those that actually put the money on the table and they don't see results.
And I want to go here because I know a lot of your day-to-day now is in the mentorship, is in the education space. And we'll dive deeper into that. But what in your vision differentiates someone like you that can engage with mentorship that you've never engaged with before and put all this money into it and just like go so deep into it? What differentiates your ability to find success and growth through that from those that would call it a scam because they went through their 6-month stint, they went through their program and they're like, it didn't work for me. I'm not making no more money.
Yeah. The first thing is, if you grown and broke, you already been scammed. Let's just start with that. Right? The societal norm has already scammed you. Going and get leverage and over leverage for college to then pay a professor to teach you how to allow someone to pay you and still limit your value. Yeah. Right. And then go and get you a house, which is your first and biggest liability, and then a couple cars to follow and probably a couple children after that. And then now you're in a rat race for 30 years. Yeah. You've already been scammed. This is actually your way to freedom. If you so choose to follow the footprint and the trail that others have blazed that have figured out how to become successful in result of doing those things. And so the same way that you had this ideology and this mindset that you will go and borrow money to pay a college to teach you how to get a job where somebody's going to limit your income, you go and find a wealthy professor called successful business person, take their curriculum, but now they're going to give you skill and teach you how to go and create your own money that has no limitations. So it's so funny to me how much of what we do in life, success in general, is in parallel with a lot of things that we already do. But because they're abnormal based off of our social construct, then we say, well, it must be a scam. Well, maybe there's a reason why 1% of the world controls all the wealth and then 99% are all stuck in the same situation. Which one do you think is the scam? Right? And so because people fail to be independent thinkers, they fail to be courageous. Many of them acquiesce and go along with the bunch because it feels more comfortable. Many people are scared to disconnect themselves from comfort and finally get comfortable with being uncomfortable. They get stuck in these bad limiting beliefs, these bad social constructs, these bad ideologies, and that's what really holds them back. And I say all that to say this. The difference with me is that I know that I'm my biggest limitation. See, we can only behave consistently in what we believe. And if I sit across from anybody and give them my money, it's because not that I believe in them. I believe in me enough that I know if I do what they showed me, then I should win. Right. And I was just telling some people this at my 5-day challenge. I do these 5-day challenges periodically for one of my real estate masterminds. And I'm like, do you know how absurd it is to pay somebody some money to teach you something and then you not follow what they showed you? Right. The first problem with that is stewardship. You made an investment with God's money to pay somebody to teach you how to do something and you not even doing your part because it's uncomfortable. Secondly, I can't hold you accountable if I paid you to teach me how to do something, I don't play all out and do what you showed me and then tell you it didn't work for me. Right. I can't hold you accountable. So I'm Mr. Accountability, starting with myself. So if I pay you, I'm going to do exactly what your process is so that if there are any gaps in it, then I at least followed it to the letter and then we could figure out how to iterate to make it better. Right. But if I don't do that, then I can't hold you accountable. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I remember having this conversation with a designer, and this is a pretty big conversation for like professional creatives around their clients wanting to guide their process and also get the outcomes that they've created for others. And it's like we could do it your way or we could do it my way and you can get what brought you here in the first place. And it's kind of the same thinking, right? It's like you can't be attached to both. You 100%. Can't be attached to an outcome that comes from a particular process and then say, yeah, but that sounds cool, but I'm going to iterate on this a little different. 100%. But that only happens. See, people are so backwards in their approach. You go to college and you know this curriculum is antiquated, probably not even proven by the professor. and you go do the dumb assignment anyway, right? Without a secondary thought.
Yeah.
But then you finally have somebody sitting across from you that could change your life, and you question everything that they put in front of you.
Yeah.
We're just so backwards, bro, in our approach. And that's why there's the 99% and the 1%.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something that you mentioned that I think aligns with that ability and willingness to even just expand your mind outside of whatever path has been laid out in front of you. You mentioned that your first home is oftentimes your first liability. And for a lot of like my generation, or just people in general, like that is so contrary to what we have been told and reared on, which is work and buy a house and like you're going to be good. Like everything's going to be okay. Like you made it. What informs that statement? Why and in what way is your first home even possibly a liability?
Because the average person that's a millionaire got it through homeownership. That's the catalyst and the fastest way to build your net worth to $1 million. Okay. For many of them, especially if your parents are boomers or Gen X, they were able to achieve that status because they held the property long enough. They held it for several decades to where it appreciated to a point to where either they paid the mortgage off or it appreciated to a point to give them that, or they did both, right? They paid it off and it appreciated. But for the average person today that's buying a home, especially Gen Z and probably many millennials, they only stay in there 3 to 5 years. So you're not staying there in many cases long enough for the market cycle in a normal market, right? Pre-COVID, market cycles about every 10 years. So you're not even staying there long enough to get the full appreciation of it before it is time to exit.
Right.
And so with that in mind, I got a daughter that's 22 and, her and I was having a conversation recently and she was like, Dad, should I rent another place or should I buy one? And I said, well, how long you plan on living in Atlanta? She said, I don't know. So when they don't buy a house, right? Because at the end of the day, it is an expense until you leverage the equity in it, rent it out for a profit or sell it for a profit. It is a liability because the definition of an asset is something that pays you cash flow. The definition of a liability is something that has negative cash flow. So while you live in your primary residence, do you pay for it or it pay for you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you look at that, again, a lot of this is just about zooming out from the narrative. And I think people fail because they're just too close to the play. And that's why we all need coaches.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't play and see the field at the same time.
It's perspective.
It's perspective. And so, do I believe in home ownership? Absolutely. Right. But under the right premise, though. It's not just rush and go buy a house because now you just tied yourself to this $2,000-$3,000 payment every month that ain't going away.
Right.
Right. And so if you got a plan, if you kind of know how long the horizon is that you plan on being at said place, you're comfortable with the fact that this is the other part, right, that I think is also very important. For many people, if they wanted to stop working or close down their business, how would their bills get paid? I mean, you tell me, how would their bills get paid?
They scratching their head asking that same question.
100%, right? So when we go and create bills for ourselves, which your primary residence is one, how do you ever get to a point of financial security or financial freedom if you don't create other revenue streams to offset that liability?
Right.
So for many people, they could never stop working because as long as they're living in that house, that $3,000 payment got to get made or they have nowhere to live.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And that's their only means of offsetting that expense through labor.
1,000%. 1,000%. And some will say, well, you're throwing money away if you live in an apartment, but are you really though?
Right.
Right? Because what an apartment does, if you don't know that you're going to stay somewhere for a specific period of time where you can capture the appreciation, that apartment gives you the agility.
Right.
If you had a change in income or a change in appetite, you can adjust that very quickly,
right,
and get out of that lease and make adjustments to complement the season that you're in with your lifestyle.
Right.
In a house, you just don't have that liberty.
Yeah.
Yes, you could sell it, but you're selling it against the market conditions that may be privy at that point in time.
Right. You're subject to whatever the market. You're kind of just hoping that the market is favorable at whatever point you do need to make that leave. You're kind of rolling the dice.
100%.
Yeah.
And this comes from a guy that owns 120 units, right? Yeah. So you would think that I'm the guy that's like, no, everybody should own a home, right? I think, yes, everybody should own a home at some point. And everybody owning a home doesn't necessarily mean a primary residence. Everybody should have an investment property at minimum, though.
Right.
And if you are a renter, congratulations, because you're in a unique situation where you can start buying investment properties and preparing for the day that you get your primary residence. So now if you can generate $2,000-$3,000 a month in net positive income cash flow, you go get this $2,000 to $3,000 mortgage. Well, now at minimum, your biggest expense in your life is now covered by investment.
Right. And that's the best place that you could be in.
Phenomenal place you could be in. Because now if you can also manage to be frugal and maybe have a couple cars that are paid off, and you've now managed to keep your overhead low, you got options in life.
Right. And
for many of us, we dig these holes and we're not sowing any seeds.
Yeah.
Right? 2 Corinthians 9:6 says, those who sow sparingly shall also reap sparingly. Those who sow generously shall also reap generously. People are not sowing seeds, but expecting harvests.
Yeah.
But they're digging holes every day by way of that car that everybody applauds you on, those trips that you're taking, that house that you live in. But you're creating more barriers to your financial success.
Yeah. Yeah.
But much of the reason, Rav, why I see this is because when people aren't fulfilled in life, they make instant gratification purchases to justify and anesthetize the thing that they're doing that does not fulfill them. But not understanding that by doing that, every time you go stroke that check or swipe that credit card, you're just perpetuating a cycle of keeping yourself further in bondage, and you're never curing the real issue, which is the void that you have because God created you to do so much more, and you keep trying to fill that hole with counterfeit instead of Christ.
Yeah.
So the sooner that you can get clear about what it is that he has called and purposed you to do, because Jeremiah 29:11 said it, he has plans to prosper us, not harm us, plans to give us a hope in the future. If we never tapped into that, or we never even realized that we didn't create ourselves, and maybe we should consult with the one that created us for the purpose he created us for, the sooner that you start doing that, then now all of a sudden you live in your life based on what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So now you get fulfillment every day. You and I talked about this off camera.
Yeah.
Bro, like, this is our life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like today is, I don't know, what, Wednesday?
Yeah.
And we were just like, hey, let's do a pod.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I got to do a seminar tonight, but I got, like, this is what we get to do.
Yeah.
We don't got to do this. We get to do this.
Yeah.
And everybody gets up every day doing something they got to do instead of what they get to do.
Yeah. I'm not tearing up, for the record.
Okay.
In case that's obvious. Man, it's really refreshing to speak to that element of business in life, because so many of the conversations that are had online, and even people that I meet, it's pure tactics and it's purely on this plane. You know, we're concerned about, all right, what's the best new strategy and like this, that, and the third. And obviously all of those things they have their degree of importance, but to what end, right? What is the root reason that you're exploring these things? Is it because you're trying to be a better steward than you are today, to your earlier point, or is it because there is a void that you are trying to mask and overcome and project something other than to everybody else that's around you? And I think that kind of leads to that point as well that you mentioned of like just not wanting to be ostracized because you went a different way.
Sure.
Than what most people understand, or what even sometimes your family might have guided you towards or away from. Sometimes it's got to look different because you're called for different, but you have to tap into that to know that and be able to lean into that. That makes so much sense.
That's good, bro.
So for somebody that is, you know, open to that, right? They have their mind open to a different path, right? Particularly when it comes to like home ownership. In your experience and from what you've seen, right? You mentioned everybody should be a homeowner at the right time, like when it makes sense and for the right reason. Yeah. So if you were to plan somebody's life out, right? And you were able to, okay, at this point, like this is going to be when you buy this, and like you might lease here for a little bit. Like what would you lay out as an ideal path that's optimized for growth and optimized towards putting someone in that situation that we described where their liabilities are offset by residual income?
Yeah.
I know that's like a very open-ended question.
I love the question, actually. you are the closest to financial freedom the day you graduate high school. At most, maybe you got a car note and a cell phone. You get the choice of where you want to go live next. So if you go straight luxury apartment, that's your decision, and that's the bond that you're now creating for yourself. So if I had to do it my way, I would first start with figuring out, what am I content with? Right? Scripture also talks about contentment a lot. That don't mean complacency, so don't confuse the two. But what am I content with based off of the lifestyle I want to live for myself? So let's say I create this little universe for myself where all of my bills all in are $2,000. So I rent initially. Maybe I got me a decent car. I got some discretionary money in that $2,000 nut. And then now I'm hyper focused on, well, maybe I house hack if I'm content with that. Right? The introvert in me wouldn't want to live that close to business. Right?
Yeah, give the definition there for those that might not be familiar.
For sure. So it's very popular nowadays for people to house hack, which may be a good strategy for those that have the temperament for that, right? Where you buy a small multifamily, 2 to 4 units, you live in one unit, you rent out the vacant units. And that's a great strategy to hedge against your current debt payment. And maybe even in some instances, depending on the market that you're in, it'll actually pay cash flow.
Net cash flow.
Right. But even in the vein where you're like, nah, I'd rather go get me a 1-bedroom apartment, be away from everybody, which would be my choice. But then you could still go and buy small multifamily properties though. Right. And rent those things out, start creating monthly residual income for yourself to then start offsetting this $2,000 a month nut. As soon as that happens, you don't have to work anymore.
Right.
So I tell young people all the time, my daughter included, it used to be this old adage where you just kind of like coast through your 20s, figuring it out, partying, work dead end jobs to like, and even sometimes into your 30s. That is not the case anymore. Yeah. Like your life is blowing by you. Yeah. And not only that, your competition is blowing. They're eating your lunch every single day if you choose to live your life like that. The clearer that you can get coming out of high school about what financial freedom looks like for you and what contentment looks like for you, the sooner you can design a life that will allow you to enjoy life because you will be working to live instead of living to work.
That is such like a pie in the sky concept for so many people.
Really?
Yeah. But it's to your point, like there is certainly this narrative of like, oh, well, I'm figuring it out. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true. But like every day of your life since you were born has been figuring it out. Why is that an excuse for not making progress?
You're going to upset some people now, Ram. You're going to upset some people now.
We stir the pot. We stir the pot. Sure. And I don't say that from a place of like, there's so much I'm figuring out too, naturally.
No, I know what you meant. I'm just being facetious.
But you're not wrong because I've had these conversations with so many of my peers where it's like, why not play at the height of your license, whatever it is that looks like. And that will vary in different moments and different seasons. But that's when you're starting to dip into a more complacent place, like you mentioned, where it's like, yeah, I could, but like I'm masking over that potential because I'm just figuring it out.
Yeah.
And it's easier for sure.
100%.
But it's just kind of robbing some ease from your life later. I was having this conversation I have a sister that's 3 years younger than me.
Okay.
And I was telling her like, financially, if there's one thing that I would tell you that hopefully you'd hear different from me than our parents is like you were saying earlier, every trip that you take, every car that you buy, whatever, like I lived it up from like 18 to 21, maybe even a little bit younger.
Okay.
But thankfully earlier on than it could have been, I realized like that wasn't me just like living life with no cost. I just paid the cost with money I make now. Like I just had to pay that cost earlier than I was even able to procure that money. So 100%. Now I'm paying that in a different way at a different time.
For sure.
So it's like I could have been more conservative and more intelligent in the decisions that I made at that point and be living it up now.
Yeah.
But
you know what's so crazy about that, bro? I just want to stop you because that's something powerful you said in that. So this is one of the biggest reasons why people stay stuck, right? So when you go to work, or you go to business, whatever you want to call it, your active income, you're selling your time for some wage or profit, right? For many people, which is under monetized. Then after you do that, you go use this money to pay for a vacation, pay for a car, whatever it is. So now you've lost your most valuable asset in your time. Then you also lost your money in the process because you already gave it to whoever for whatever service or product that you bought. This is why people have to invest in themselves to develop skill. Because when I pay for things, I pay for them according to my creativity, not from my creativity, according to. So if I utilize my creativity to develop a strategy, and then I deploy that strategy into the marketplace for the form of income, then when I get that income, I go buy the thing. Mm-hmm. So yes, you got my money, but I still got the strategy and I still got the creativity that created the strategy.
Right. Versus giving you my time and the money that came from that. Yeah. Why do you feel that is a hard concept for some people to grasp? Because I feel like a lot of folks hear that and they're
because it's easy to be mediocre.
And that's the choice most people
That's
make.
the choice most people make because it's more common.
Yeah.
People fall subject to what's familiar. And it's easy to be average.
Yeah.
So more people just acquiesce and be average.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of intentionality. It takes a lot of pain. It takes a lot of strife. It takes a lot of betrayal. It takes a lot of lost friendships. It takes a lot of ridicule. It takes a lot of persecution to be an independent thinker and to go against the grain. And people don't want that smoke. Yeah. But what they fail to realize is that fire that they're in is smoldering their whole life. Yeah. I can at least put mine out now. Yeah. And that's the difference. Yeah. So they stay in this, they find a cool place in hell.
Oof. Jeez, dog, that's crazy. That's crazy. I hope that one grabs somebody by their shoulders.
Bro,
and like,
please.
and wakes them up.
Please.
It reminds me, there was something I heard when I was young that stuck with me and like bled into every perspective I have about life, which was a natural reality of the universe that all things trend towards chaos.
Yes, sir.
And it is only through concentrated effort that any semblance of order can be maintained. But that trend towards all you have to do to allow chaos in is like all you have to do is allow the tide of life and time and entropy to like take you there. That is the easiest thing for most people to do. So that's what they do with their lives.
That's interesting because if you look at how God created the universe, he didn't create anything that he didn't create something to maintain it.
There was wow. Oh my goodness. That's a deep well right there, Brian. That's crazy.
We're gonna have to hit that on part 2. We can't even touch that right now.
But
for those that caught like just pay very close attention. God is the master economist. He don't waste nothing. So because of what you just said about everything naturally shifts towards chaos, God didn't create anything that he didn't create something to maintain it.
That's giving me chills, man. That's crazy. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I hope so. Some folks gonna catch that. Yeah, and we gonna spin the block on that one
for sure.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I want to bring some perspective to because over this whole conversation, I can already hear it. I can already feel this energy of like, that's nice for them, right? That's cool for somebody. But with the job that I work, with the money that I make, with the bills that I got, like I can't do that, Brian. I'm not there. So from someone that owns as many doors as you do and has been in the game for as long as you have, I want to give like a realistic perspective and insight on like, where do I need to be able to buy an investment property, right? Brian, I got a few grand in debt. You know, maybe I got college loans, maybe I got whatever. Brian, I only make that $2,000 that you talked about or that $3,000. I don't have as much discretionary income as I imagine these people that are buying doors left and right do. What is a realistic idea of where somebody needs to be at before they could, when they could potentially open up that door and start exploring?
Yeah. Nobody has a money problem, only a knowledge problem. So if you're in a situation where you feel like you don't have the margin in your finances or the means, the first investment needs to be in yourself, because a fool and their money shall soon part.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important that you get educated, because as I mentioned, the reason why I lost my first portfolio wasn't because, well, it was partly because I ran out of money, but I bought 20 properties in the process of that.
Yeah.
I lost my portfolio because I lacked the knowledge and the skill set to go and create partnerships at that time. Once I got mentorship and learned how to raise capital, had I had that skill during that time when I had that portfolio, I could have went and raised like 150 grand and kept my portfolio, created a partnership. And at the start of COVID, on that 10-year cycle, could have sold with all the big boys and girls and made like 2.5, 2.6 million. So my lack of skill cost me a couple million in that particular context.
Right.
So it's never about the money. Most people that have 100 grand sitting around and jump into this business get burnt because they assume whatever they were proficient at to build up that nest egg, that automatically makes them proficient in this other area. And that's just ignorance.
Yeah.
Right? That's pride disguised as, well, that's ignorance disguised as pride.
Right.
So we got to be careful that whatever we do, that we strive to be the expert at it.
Yeah.
And before anybody starts spending money on things that cost 6 figures, multiple 6 figures like real estate does, you need to take some time to get educated first. That would be my recommendation to anybody. You got $2,000, go buy a course, go join a challenge. Like, go do that. Don't try to go buy your first property.
Yeah.
Because another misnomer is people think that cash flow should be your first acquisition. And the reason that is because for many people, that's the easiest one. If you got a decent enough credit score, you fall within the guidelines for a conventional lender at the bank, you go get an FHA loan, right, with 5%, 3.5% down, conventional loan with 5 or 10% down. So that's the least path of resistance for most people that don't have a lot of liquidity on hand.
Right.
However, if you're not well capitalized and you get this rental property that somebody is now living in and tearing up in the process of living in it, if you get, an expensive $5,000, $7,000, maybe your HVAC goes out year one and you only netting $150 a month, but you parading this trophy around as if you done bought your first property. Well, what happens when that $7,000 expense come up and you got no reserves?
Right.
Right. You now turn into a slumlord, one, because you can't fix the thing for that tenant that's living in there. God forbid they stop paying and now you got this mortgage. So this thing you bought in the asset has become your biggest liability.
Yeah.
And so we got to know what we're doing before we start doing it.
Yeah.
Like, that would be my recommendation for everybody.
I love that, because I think it also speaks to something so many people, my generation in particular, are terrible about, which is like, we oftentimes associate the ideas of progress to the wrong things, right? Because what you're saying is, if that's the position that you're in, making progress and entering in this game means going to get educated through whatever means are at your disposal with the income and the position that you're in.
Yes.
But for so many people, they would rush into a situation that they don't understand for the sake of being able to claim what is visible progress to everyone else, despite the opportunity for that to put them in a worse position down the line, just because they were ignorant to what it actually involves.
Happens every day.
Yeah, man. I'm just so happy that you said that, because it brings a path of opportunity and growth to light for those that are committed to that, but it also informs the appropriate steps to take without rushing out of a sense of FOMO or trying to catch up and putting yourself in a worse place.
For sure.
So I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, FOMO is huge. I mean, obviously that's kind of like, I think, a little bit out of my generation in terms of that terminology or it being that apparent.
Yeah.
I think it's always been a condition, but it's just never been coined that way.
Right.
Right.
And certainly exacerbated now with social media.
Definitely.
For sure.
Definitely. And it's a real thing. The more I make observation, it is a real thing, because oftentimes people are competing with ghosts. The thing that you're comparing your situation to don't even exist in real life.
Yeah.
It exists on social media.
It's a facade. Yeah.
So how you ever going to win if that's the marker by which you measure success?
Yeah. It ain't even real.
Oh my God.
Man. So for that person that is interested in taking whatever that step towards actual progress might be, I know you mentioned you're in the middle of a 5-day challenge right now. By the time this goes out, that'll probably be wrapped, but I know you said that you do this pretty often. I would love to give some context to all of the ways in which like you work with people, what options are available to them, and what pointing them in the right direction to kind of like dip their toe in, check it out, go all in, like whatever step it is that they're ready to take, how they go about doing that.
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing is, if it's okay with you, because we didn't even talk about this offline, I like to give everybody a free gift.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. So if everybody watching this, if you want to go to iflipebook.com, www.iflipebook.com, I have my Investing Remotely book there. Top 5 things you need to know about investing remotely. Okay.
I think I saw that in your link tree in your bio on Instagram as well.
Sure.
In case,
for sure.
Yeah.
So there you have to pay for it.
Oh,
right.
Ooh.
So this is a freebie.
This is free sauce.
This
goodness.
is something just for your viewers. So you guys go to www.iflipebook.com to get your free copy. Because otherwise, if they go to my link tree on social media,
it's going to be paid. Appreciate that, man. That's real.
Yeah. So in addition to that, so let me just talk really briefly about what remote investing is.
Please.
So I live in Orlando. I own 120 units, 800 miles away in Michigan.
Okay.
We got students in Denmark, Japan, Afghanistan, all throughout the states who invest in different areas. Okay. But I don't want it to be limited to only that connotation. Investing remotely really means setting up your infrastructure in such a way, meaning building your team out and your business out in such a way to allow you to not have to get pulled into the rigors of the day-to-day activity.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how I was able to quit corporate America at 35. This is how I've helped so many others get financial freedom and their time freedom back at such a young age, because with 10 to 12 hours a week, with our systems and processes, you can build a 6 or 7 figure annual business. Okay. So for many people, they got to make a living while they're trying to make their fortune.
Right.
And this is a perfect ecosystem to help them do that. Okay.
Just because of the leverage that those systems and processes provide.
100%.
That makes so much sense.
100%. Yeah. So you can do it in your backyard. I mean, I did deals in Orlando years ago when the market was better, but I just still had it set up from a remote aspect, although I lived here. So I didn't have to deal with all the day-to-day,
right,
which frees me up to find more deals, raise more capital, manage the managers.
Right.
So if I do those 3 things and get proficient at those while I have a team that's doing all the rest of it, that gives me extreme leverage.
Yeah.
Right. So I just wanted to clarify that point so people understand what the book is about.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we've got, our VIPs. I teach coaches and consultants how to start and scale coaching and consulting businesses.
Nice.
Many people have a message that's just under monetized.
Yeah.
Like we've all got proficient at something at some point, right? And I shouldn't say everybody, but right,
many, certainly many,
many. But they always look at it as doing it for somebody else, but not for themselves.
Yeah.
So I teach coaches and consultants how to monetize their messages, how to put framework around what they deliver to the marketplace. They're also now that they're making money, they need a hedge. So I teach them how to invest in apartments. And then they're also a part of my mastermind, and we do a lot of other cool stuff, take trips together. That's a $100,000 program.
Nice.
That's our VIP. And then we've got our 55K Inner Circle, which is for our Affordable Apartments Academy. They're also in our mastermind, and they get access to different events that we do and such. My hourly rate is $10,000 an hour. If people like, hey, I want to pick your brain, take you to lunch, just know,
Yeah.
And I say all this, right, because I just want to be very clear with people.
Right.
I'm not the cheapest guy.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that the cheapest are the best either.
Right.
And if you're looking for cheap, you probably should look somewhere else. You know what I mean? But if you're looking to get sound, proven systems that we've been doing this for a very long time now, helping people in 4 different countries, and you're serious, like we're going to give you exactly what you need, all the resources, the elements. We have lenders that work with our students. We have, every single piece from documentation to legal, everything that they need is inside of our ecosystem, so that they can go out and build their business proficiently, And in addition to that, is there something else I'm leaving out? Oh, how did I leave this out? Now, I'm excited about real estate, but what really get me excited, I got this community now called Believers in Business.
Mm-hmm.
And God put this on my heart to start it, to help business owners get stronger in their faith, their fitness, their finance, and their freedom.
So needed.
So it's 4 pillars, and it's for business owners, aspiring business owners, right? It's biblically based, but it's no prerequisite to be a Christian. So I don't want nobody to think that, right? I'm just giving people I use the Bible because, one, I think it's the best instruction manual in life. I believe that it's truth. I know it's my truth, her truth, his truth, her. It's the truth, and it don't change. Yeah. Hasn't in 2,000 years. So if I'm gonna teach somebody something, I'd rather it be founded in something that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So even if you don't believe in Jesus, God, whatever, if you just read the wisdom in Proverbs, it just make logical sense. Right. And so that's why we teach business principles from it. And we're just equipping business owners to be able to bring in more income by first taking good care of their temple. And understanding that faith is the foundation. You're only going to build something as big as what you believe in it.
Yeah.
So your faith is the foundation, and your fitness, your health and wellness is the structure and the vehicle to take you wherever it is that you plan to go. So you got to keep that in order: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And then, helping people get out of debt. We had one of our students from Canada, first month in the Believers in Business, he paid off almost $70,000 in debt.
Oh, wow.
Right. So helping people financially clean up their personal finances, as well as, put some financial structure around their businesses, maybe look at that a little bit differently. And then ultimately, the fourth pillar being freedom. We got to get free from some things to get free to some things.
Yeah.
And many people in bondage, toxic relationships, poor habits, stinking thinking. And so we're talking about that. Why it's so near and dear to me is because this business was birthed out of my own walking life.
Yeah.
Like everything that I'm talking about, I've lived it. And so, I had bouts and struggles with alcohol and drugs at one point. I've gotten on the other side of all of those things. And so I want to help people because I understand the struggles for a business owner. It's a lonely place.
Yeah.
And many times people aren't in the right environment and don't have the right support system to really galvanize what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
If anything, they got people that's pulling them in the opposite direction.
Right.
And so, I'm excited. It's $47 a month, right? People could get a 14-day free trial. It's the least expensive thing that I do, but it's the thing that I do that brings me most fulfillment because it's really helping people holistically. I could teach you how to make money, and eventually that becomes transactions. But helping people become a better person is nothing that compares to that.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that's needed in the world. We were talking about this off camera, like, so much of a focus for, especially people like getting in the game, like they think money is going to fill whatever gap is caused by who they are and who they're not. And, to know that you're addressing that. Los and I talk about this all the time. Like it always comes back to like personal development, even, the spiritual end, the physical end. And sometimes it takes people like making money to realize that. But hopefully through this means, and they won't need to, right?
For
hopefully they can align themselves and develop personally on the way up, as opposed to needing to like come around full circle.
For sure, bro. I mean, you preaching. I thought like becoming a millionaire was it.
Yeah.
And then when I first got there, I was rich and miserable. I had even a bigger void.
Yeah.
Because now the thing I thought that was going to give me the fulfillment didn't.
You done cross the solution off. You're like, man,
I'm still empty.
Yeah.
And so what I've figured out is that it doesn't matter how much money you make. It really doesn't. Who you become in that process will allow you or disallow you to enjoy it when you get it.
Yeah.
Because if there's a void inside, you can throw as much money at it, drinking, alcohol, women, sex, whatever it is. It's all counterfeit. None of it is going to fulfill you.
Yeah.
And so I had to become the person, to really learn contentment, to love myself. That's another part. You get so fixated on building something that you forget to check in with who you're becoming and evolving during that time. And so I had to spend a lot of time just meeting my new self.
Yeah.
And falling in love with that guy.
Yeah. Getting to know him.
Yeah.
Man. Well, I'm happy that folks, I'm happy that there's a reference point for that. Because I think a lot of people find that like, it's like a woo-woo concept just because they don't see what that looks like or they don't have a clarity on what that means. So I'm really glad that you speak on that. And I appreciate your openness, your kindness, your willingness to just share so much of what you've picked up on your journey so far. And this definitely won't be our last time.
Not at all,
yeah,
bro.
Come back through, man.
We just scratched the surface.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll spin back through. Drop that link. I'll drop that link for that gift that you mentioned in the description. Make sure that folks find it. We'll have your socials on there too.
For sure.
And yeah, man, appreciate you coming through.
And if you guys just follow along, get in the ecosystem, I have no idea when we'll do our next challenge, but at least go get the free gift, get an ecosystem, and then when we have a challenge, you guys will be alerted.
You'll come back through.
Yeah,
cool, man.
Sure.
Well, until next time, appreciate y'all tuning in, and yeah, I'll catch you soon.
My man.